Hey dreamers on YouTube and Facebook, this is immigration attorney Parviz Malakouti, and on November 12th, 2019, the fate of DACA is going to be argued in a case before the Supreme Court. I asked you guys what your top questions were about the case. You guys gave them to me, and I'm going to answer them in this video. So I got my list here, and I'm ready to roll. And please excuse the informal dress. Don't feel like dressing up today. Anyway, let's get right to it. So first question, what do you think will happen if DACA is allowed to continue? So first of all, I cannot tell the future. This is just my opinion. I could be wrong. I think there's primarily four options. I think the first option is that the Trump administration tries to end DACA again with additional justification. I think the second option is that possibly they run out of time while trying to formulate the next way to end DACA. Because remember, we have an election in November of 2020, and we could have a new president by January of 2021. I think the third option is that the Trump administration just allows it to continue. They don't try to end it again. And I think the fourth option is that the court order, the ruling from Supreme Court could have something in there that is putting in specific protections to allow DACA to continue. I think those are the four options. I think the most likely options are the first two. I think either the Trump administration is going to try to end it again with additional justifications, or they're going to run out of time trying to do so. Second question, if it does, meaning if DACA is allowed to continue, do you think advanced parole will be reinstated? My answer to this question is I really don't know. It's tough to tell. If somebody put a gun to my head and said you have to give your opinion on whether you think advanced parole will be reinstated, I would lean, if DACA is allowed to continue, I would lean a little bit towards saying yes, just because in the original court order from the lower courts that ordered DACA to be reinstated to the previous the way it was September 4th, 2017, that did include advanced parole as well. So that's it. Numera tres, what do you think will happen if it ends, meaning if DACA is ended? So if the DACA program is ended, I think people well, first of all, there will be no new renewals, of course. I think those of you who already have your work permits will probably be allowed to work through basically, I don't think that work permits would be canceled. I think you'd be able to have them for the duration until their expiration. And I think DACA applications that are pending, the Trump administration would decide what to do with them through USCIS. So could decide to just process all of those or to deny all of those, or possibly to just process applications that were received before a certain date and deny the ones that were received after a certain date. So those are that's what I think will happen if DACA ends. Number 4, what are the chances of a DREAM Act passing? Okay, first of all, the DREAM Act is not being argued on November 12th. This is DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It's an act of prosecutorial discretion of the executive. But there is a DREAM Act, of course. Actually, there's two DREAM Acts actually in Congress. One which got a lot more attention than the other. That was H.R. 6, which passed the House of Representatives in June. It's been languishing in the Senate ever since. It has never been brought to a vote. I did a summary on that as well as a few FAQs. I'm going to link to that up top. You should be seeing a video card or whatever you youngsters call those things up here to that video. I don't think that H.R. 6 is going to be passed. So I don't think that a DREAM Act is going to be passed now. However, I do think a DREAM Act is likely to be passed in the next 2 years. I do think it's going to happen eventually, and sooner than later. Number 5, what are your thoughts on the added time? Okay, so I assume this question is talking about the added time for argument. Just a couple days ago, the news came out basically that Supreme Court is going to increase the oral argument from 30 minutes on each side to 40 minutes on each side. So Trump administration gets 40 minutes. The DACA side gets 40 minutes, and that's split again into 20 minutes for the coalition of states advocating to continue DACA, and then 20 minutes for the DACA recipients, the individuals affected. Of course, both sides are getting more time, so it's tough to say, who's benefited by it. My instinct is that I think the DACA side probably benefits a little bit more from having more time, because I think the DACA side has the tougher argument. So number 6, when do you think they are likely to give their final decision? So they being Supreme Court, decision is expected between January and June. I think, and not just me, a lot of people think it's going to be given a lot closer to June than January. Number 7, can our assets be taken away? No, very, very, very unlikely. So, DACA is protection against deportation. Doesn't have to do with the assets of DACA recipients. And of course, you don't have to have immigration status to own property or assets in this country. So no, I don't think your assets can be taken away. Number 8, what will happen to the work permits? Okay, I'm sorry. If DACA ends, what will happen to the work permits? So I kind of answered that in number 3. There's no guarantee about what I'm about to say, but I believe that work permits that still have time until expiration will be allowed to continue in its validity until they expire. Number 9, great question. This is a great question. Are they deciding if the way Trump ended it is legal or if it is legal to continue to extend DACA? Okay, it's the first part. So one of the two main issues is if the way the Trump administration ended DACA is legal. Okay, the other issue is whether the Trump administration's unwinding of DACA is even judicially reviewable. Judicially reviewable means that the court has the power to even review it. Okay, DACA recipients have to win on both issues in order for DACA to survive. That is number 9. Number 10, once a decision is made, are changes effective immediately? Okay, not immediately, but it could be very, very quickly thereafter because Supreme Court comes out with a decision, comes out with a ruling, and then of course, whatever changes, if there's going to be changes, have to be implemented by USCIS. So USCIS could act very quickly in implementing those changes. It could also be that the ruling has time limits in it. It could say that USCIS is ordered to do X action within 30 days or within 60 days or whatever. So the answer is technically changes are not effective immediately, but it could be implemented very, very quickly thereafter. Final question. If the government ends up taking away DACA and don't come up with a path to citizenship for us or any other option for us to be quote unquote legal, are we going to be put in deportation proceedings eventually since they have our info in their system? Good question. I know a lot of DACA recipients are concerned about this. I think most DACA recipients are not going to end up in removal proceedings, at least not in the short term, if DACA is ended. And that's because there are more than 10 million undocumented immigrants in the country. We don't have the government doesn't have the assets to remove all of those individuals. So what it does is it focuses on enforcement priorities. Enforcement priorities in immigration are people that the country wants out immediately. So enforcement priorities tend to be, undocumented immigrants that are convicted of violent crimes, drug traffickers, terrorists, threats to public safety, people with final orders of removal. And most DACA recipients simply do not fall in one of those categories. So I don't think they are a removal priority. So, of course, there's 700,000 DACA recipients. Could be that some of them end up in removal proceedings, but as a whole, as a group, I don't think it's an enforcement priority. I don't think it would be an enforcement priority for the administration if DACA ends. And also, that's not even speaking of the fact that DACA recipients are very sympathetic in the public's eye. Polls show that the Americans support Dreamers to stay and also to have a permanent path to citizenship. So I think it'd be a very politically unpopular opinion to not just end DACA, but to target them for removal. So that's it for this video. 2 quick things. If you like talking about these topics, join my group, DACA Dreamers Moving Forward. Shout out to all my members in DACA Dreamers Moving Forward. Love you guys. You guys have great conversation. And we'd love to have more members that want to engage on these issues. Secondly, if you like this video, you might like this next video, which is 5 basic facts about the November 12th hearing. You should be seeing a card up here again, video card again, whatever you guys call it. That's it. I'll see you at that video.